So thank you guys for joining me for this webinar. I'm really excited about this topic. I was listening to Meher's story from her dad, and I was like, this is interesting that both Aarav and Meher have gone through this interesting program, and there must be some really unique insights that they have to share. So this is kind of the reason behind it. And I wanted to record this because I believe the insights that you guys have to share are going to be very helpful for me to understand, and also for other students to kind of understand what these programs are all about. So in this webinar, we're going to talk about pre-med programs that are available for high school students. We're going to talk about Meher and Aarav's journey as to, where did they find out about the program? How did they apply for it? What was the process like? What did they learn from it? And if they recommend it for other students. So that's basically the beginning and introduction of what we're going to do here. If you guys have any questions, you have the option of asking those questions in the chat, and we will address them towards the end of the webinar. So please save them up. And if you see questions that are already asked, you can give a thumbs up so we know which questions we need to get to. So we're going to go ahead and get started. My name is Yusra. I'm the founder and CEO of MyTrex.ai. At MyTrex.ai, we help students find out what their strengths are and then help them figure out the right career path that they're gonna like and enjoy. And they discover and go through this journey with our team. We have strengths coaches and we have counselors. And this is a gamified journey where you get to kind of discover yourself and find out which career is the right fit for you. So on that note, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to have Meher introduce yourself first, and then we'll go to Aarav.
Okay, of course. Hi, everyone. My name is Meher. As Yusra said, I did a program at UCLA over the summer, which was kind of structured into like an introduction into the medical space. I'm really excited to talk to y'all today.
Tell us what grade you're in. And what school?
I am going into my junior year of high school, and I'm going to be a junior at Carroll Senior High School.
Okay.
Hi, I'm Aarav. I am a rising senior, also going to Carroll Senior High School. And the program that I got into is program at Rice University for Advanced Medicine and Foundations.
Very nice. Very nice. Okay. So when I'll have questions, you guys are more than welcome to answer one at a time, or if you want to just jump in, that's fine too. This is a very natural, organic conversation. So so let's start with the beginning. What year typically these programs are for? Like, what year are you supposed to apply? When do you find out about these programs, and what year are you supposed to apply and get into them?
I can answer this one. So honestly, it depends on the program itself, and kind of the method on how you found out about it. So I know people who didn't apply to any of these sorts of programs until like late junior year, like March, April, whereas I learned about this opportunity January of my sophomore year. I've seen even some people, and even at the program that I attended, they learned about these opportunities freshman year. So when they apply is kind of completely dependent on the method of how they found out about the program. As to what grades are admitted, it's also dependent on the program. So for example, the program I did was allowing anybody from freshmen to seniors, or rising seniors, to be a part of the program. However, I've seen some of the ones that are offered by the same company are limited to rising juniors, rising seniors. So it's dependent on what the program is targeting to offer and kind of the content found, because obviously if they're a more in-depth program, they're going to cater to your juniors, your seniors. But if it's a more introductory program like the one I did, it's going to cater more towards the younger half of the high school, so freshman and sophomore year.
Okay, so I have a follow-up question to that. So you're saying that technically there are a lot of programs offered for each year, but
Yes.
when you go into the program, like the one that you applied to, was that specific to, I guess, your year?
No, the program I applied to was open freshmen to seniors.
Okay.
or to rising senior. That's another thing. If you are already in your senior year, a lot of programs have cutoffs where they're like, you can't apply, which most people don't end up applying anyway because they've already applied to the colleges that they like to. They don't really want to build more on their resume. And if they're applying to programs, they're more looking into like pre-graduate, pre-college experiences to kind of add more for themselves. So a lot of the programs that are more targeted towards giving students experience are going to limit that you are a rising senior, meaning you're going into your senior year at the time of applying.
Okay, got it. Aarav, what about the program that you went into? How does that differentiate?
So for me personally, the program that I went to was a little more restrictive on age. They only accepted rising seniors. So the reason for that is just because some programs, they have like research that you're doing at the university, or they have specific course information that you're understanding. So like personally, when I was applying to the program, there were specific topics we had to fill out on the application that have you taken this course. Like for example, I had to have AP chemistry and AP biology taken, and I had to score a 4 or higher on both of the exams. And then they also have to take into account if you've taken the SAT, if you've taken a certain amount of credits in your high school, and you need to have teacher recommendations from junior year teachers as well. So for some programs, there's usually more information that the university requires from you, and because of that, they only limit it to a certain age group, and that's how it was personally for me.
Okay, I see. How did you guys learn about the programs?
I'll go ahead and answer this one first. The way I learned about my program was honestly kind of silly, and I learned about other programs through different ways. How I found out about this one specifically is I was talking to my friend about how stressed I was that I wasn't going to one of these camps because I heard that some friends had gotten accepted into one. And so we just Googled high school medical internship applications or summer camps or things like that into Google. And because of the program I went to is it has multiple campuses over the US. It was one of the first few that popped up. And then me and my friend, we kind of did divide and conquer, and we each kind of took the first couple Google searches, did some heavy background research into them, and then chose them on our own. However, I found out about different programs that I'm applying to this year through upperclassmen at my school. So current seniors like Aarav, people who have already graduated. And I was lucky enough to where at our school, they did this thing called the Fall Fair through our Carroll Medical Academy, where it was essentially kind of a show and tell of summer programs. Different people with every summer program that they've done, they would just come up, share it, tell them about the experiences they had there. And it really opened my eyes to different programs around me that were available. And so, yeah, I would say if you were looking to discover programs, that would be a right match for you. The biggest thing you can do is ask your upperclassmen, because more often than not, they have gone through summer programs themselves, or just straight Googling. That's another pretty easy way to find them.
Okay, that's good to know. What about Aarav, for you? How did you discover about the RISE program?
Me personally, like I didn't really ask many upperclassmen, like because I've just kind of been like looking to like specific programs that would tailor for me. So what I did is I utilized ChatGPT. I kind of just put in like all of what I've done throughout high school, and I told GPT my interest, that I'm interested in medicine, specifically like these fields. And I asked it, can you make a list for me for summer programs that you think would be like kind of tailored to my application and my interests? And the Rice University program was the first one that popped up. So I did a little bit more research. I clicked on the link, I explored it, looked at exactly, you know, what they do, what the program is about, and then that's how I decided to apply to that program.
Wow. So Chat GPT. So that means all of that was basically this year. So you discovered it this year and applied for it this year. Okay. But so the program that you went into, they were looking, they wanted to make sure that you had taken the SAT. You also provided them with some recommendation letters.
Yes.
And what was the other thing you said? Transcript, GPA?
You needed AP Biology and AP Chem with a 4 or higher.
Okay. So, and that was because it was specifically for rising seniors. So they were really wanting to make sure that you are someone who is already planning to go into the medical track and you want to basically pursue medical degrees.
Yes, exactly.
Okay. Got it. And then Meher, you were not required to do the SAT or anything like that because it was it was an exploration type of a program.
Yes, however, I was still required to submit my GPA. Along with that, there was an interview. So there was, on my application, there were 2 stages. There was the written application, where you put in your basic info, what school you went to, what campus and what pathway you would be interested in. And then you had to do a short written paragraph about why you would be a good fit for the program. If you made it past that first stage, they would offer you an interview, which was only 10-15 minutes, which you would kind of dive deeper into why the program interests you and what you expected to gain from the program, along with what you had already done in order to show your interest. So once you make it past both of those stages, you're offered a spot at a campus, depending on what you put down on that initial step.
Okay, it's like a job interview basically. So
Kind of, yeah.
Your application and then you have an interview. Who interviewed you? Is it a professor or is it a student at the university?
So who interviewed me? She was I believe she was a pre-med student going into her 4th year of undergrad. And then when I asked other people at the camp, hey, how was your interview like? Because we ended up talking about it. A lot of people were interviewed by people who were counselors at other campuses, or they were undergrad students either going into their 1st year of med school, or they were in their med school applicant stages.
Okay, got it. Okay. What about for you, Aarav? Did you also have to go through an interview process as well?
There wasn't an interview for mine, but there was an essay that we had to submit. So
Okay.
it was a 500-word essay that you had to explain why do you have an interest in medicine, and it asks you to elaborate on what you've done inside and outside the classroom for that.
Okay, got it. Okay, that's good to know. So in a way, they want to make sure that when they bring somebody in, that person is genuinely interested in the program. Are these programs, would you say, pretty competitive? Do you know how many people applied and got in?
For mine personally, it was around 20% acceptance rate, so somewhat competitive, yeah.
Okay.
I'm not completely sure on how competitive mine was. However, we were told that by the interviewers themselves during our interviews that after that first step, about 60 to 70% of initial applicants were cut. Making it through the interview step was not a guarantee that you were making it to given a spot, but it was pretty crucial. So I would say that it was somewhat competitive, but at the same time, the program I applied to was not really, it was as you said, it was an explorative program. It wasn't really focused on deepening our knowledge extremely, more giving us a look into the day-to-day life and the process of becoming a doctor. So because of that, I don't think it was nearly as competitive as Aarav's, but you still had to have some sort of grade expectance, things like that. Like pretty much everybody that was there that had applied had a 3.9 GPA or higher and things like that. So I would say there was at least some level of competition, but it wasn't horribly bad.
Okay. How long was the program for both of you guys?
For me, the program was about 4 weeks long.
4 weeks long. Okay. And you stayed on campus?
Yeah, so how it worked is we kind of had to, so it was a research camp. So we did this thing called a literature review where each student was required to read certain research articles and make their own review on that. So for the first 2 weeks, it was virtual. You did that at home. And then for the next 2 weeks, we went on to campus to actually do the research there.
Wow. Okay. That's pretty interesting. What was the topic that you researched?
So my topic was, or like the overall research topic was about Alzheimer's disease, and if a certain biological process called DNA methylation can be an early detection method for Alzheimer's disease.
Very nice. Very nice. That I like that area of research as well, with the protein building
Yeah.
side of the brain. That's interesting. Okay, that's good. And Meher, how long was your program?
My program was just under a week, I'd say like 6 full days, and then there was like kind of half travel days for people flying in and flying out like I was. And my program, we had a lot more simulation exercises. We got to go to the simulation center over at UCLA. I forget what it's called. I have it. I have like a bag from them I could probably grab later, but we got to go to their simulation center, which had a whole range of different virtual and physical experiences that were amazing to try. Essentially, how it was structured was in the morning, we'd have more academic core lessons about how to become a doctor, the different steps, whether it be applying for colleges, all the way to preparing for the MCAT and applying for med school, and kind of the different pathways to becoming a full-fledged doctor. And then in the afternoon was more trackway specific. So I was in the general surgery track. So we got to have lectures with a general surgery resident at UCLA and hear about their specific pathways and how they did their day-to-day lives, along with get our questions answered about work-life balance. And then we, as I said earlier, went to those simulation centers, got to do mock like pincher exercises, like as if we were in an operating room, things like that. It was again, like I said, a lot more explorative and kind of immersing yourself into what the medical world could be like for you.
Okay, that's good. What was the cost of the program?
For my program, it was free.
Okay.
My program, I believe it was around $2,800 ish. However, a lot of the people that were there, they only ended up paying like $500-600 through financial aid application.
Okay.
I don't believe I qualified for it at the time of application, but yeah, it wasn't hard to ask for financial aid if needed. I think there was somebody else there who didn't necessarily qualify for the like exact boundaries that they set for their financial aid, but after emailing with the camp counselor and the program directors, they were able to get, I think, about $1,600 of the cost relieved. So even if you don't necessarily qualify for that financial aid, and this is, I guess, specific to the program I was with, they are very cooperative working with you financially. So they were able to work out aid in that case.
Okay, that's good to know. So basically, Aarav's program was at no cost. It was more of a research program, and then yours is more of an introductory, so there was a cost around it, but financial is available for students through that. So that's actually good to know.
I think most of the cost, from what I could tell, was coming from the fact that the program was residential. Because we were staying on campus, all of our meals were paid for. You didn't have to pay for a single meal. All of our amenities were provided to us, things like that. So except for if you were, except for like the short trip we did to Santa Monica Pier, and when we went to Westwood over at UCLA, if you bought something outside of that, like on those trips, then obviously you would have to pay for it out of pocket. Otherwise, everything else was covered.
Okay. Why do you guys think that this program was essential or important? Like, what did you get out of this program?
So me personally, like more than just the actual academic side, I feel like this program was really important to boost my team collaboration skills just because like I've never really worked in a research setting like in general, but I've also never really worked with like a team on a project like this. So I believe that like through spending 2 weeks with them on campus, I was able to learn more about like how, you know, to divide up work, how to efficiently collaborate with other people. And also just in terms of medicine and like biology, chemistry in general, I felt like this program was really enriching in the terms where I finally like, you know, got to explore something on a much deeper level rather than just, you know, in school when we're learning certain concepts, it's the very general basis and very broad and shallow knowledge. But I really enjoyed going deep into a specific topic.
That's awesome because you got us like 4 weeks of research experience. That's amazing. So
Yeah.
that's really insightful. So you developed some skills that you essentially never got to really explore before, worked in an actual research setting, saw some things happen, see what the doctors are working on actually. So you had like the firsthand experience of what it might like if you go into the field of research, I'm guessing, not necessarily being in the field of becoming a practitioner. A little bit different, right?
It was more research heavy than like in like a clinical setting. So yeah, it would be more of like a research experience.
Okay, got it. So why do you think, would you recommend this for others? Like, like why should a student apply to this program?
I feel like especially if you are interested in any sort of medicine, it doesn't even have to be specifically about health science, but if you're just interested in science in general, I feel like this program that's offered at Rice will have something that will cover your interests. Like I personally picked the Alzheimer's topic because neuroscience is something that I'm interested in, but they have so many other topics. It even expands further than medicine. They have economics, they have policy, they have government, they have a lot of other stuff. So I believe that you get the research and collaborative experience that's going to be very important for your undergraduate years. And you also get to pick the topic that you're most interested in.
Oh wow. So basically this is not specifically for medical students. Like Rice offers all other programs and you just pick the area that you want to pick.
Exactly. So like how it kind of works is the application is kind of a general research application at Rice. And then you pick which topic you want to do. So I obviously picked medicine, and that is determined what AP scores you need to submit, and it's determined about what essay you're going to write.
What is the name of the program so that we can have it available for the people that are interested?
It's Rice University Advanced Medicine and Foundations, and specifically the Collaborative Summer Research Program.
Okay, got it. We're gonna upload this webinar on our YouTube channel, so I will go ahead and add all those links available for the people so they know which programs we're talking about as well.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's good to know. That's really interesting. So it's a different program. So technically you could have picked any area of medication that you wanted to, or even economics if you wanted to go in that track.
Exactly.
Okay, got it. And Aarav, so your interest is in neuroscience. You're planning to go in the field of neurology?
So kind of this summer, I was kind of like expanding bases on because I know I want to pursue medicine, but I'm kind of expanding basis on what I want to major in undergrad. So this program was obviously more neuroscience and neuroscience heavy, but I also did other activities regarding like chemistry and biology. So in terms of undergraduate, I'm pursuing biochemistry.
Okay, got it. And biochemistry will still be the track to go into medical school?
Yes.
Okay, you don't necessarily have to do pre-med. It can be biochemistry, but you take all the pre-med requirements and be ready for to take your MCATs and all that stuff.
Yes. So in undergrad, there's no such thing as a pre-med major or a pre-med course. Rather, you pick whatever major you want, and as long as you take the required courses,
Yep.
then you can apply for medical school.
Yeah. Yep. So it's basically they have like you specialize in a specific area, but you pick the courses that you want. You just want to make sure that you are ready for medical school. So at the end of the day, they're making sure that you're ready for what's going to come ahead.
Exactly.
Like you're going to need biology basically if you want to go into medicine industry.
Just to kind of add on to this was something that was heavily discussed at the program I went into, especially since we had a focus on, you know, applying for med school and things like that. They made it very clear that as long as you have those pre-med requirements, med schools don't look at exactly what you majored in. Rather, they look at the grades that you got in those pre-med requirements, and they look at your MCAT score and obviously your personal statements that you submit. You can do pretty much any major as long as you have an MCAT score and those classes completed and ready to submit at some med school applications. A lot of students that go into pre-med, however, just end up choosing the biology, the biochem majors, chemistry majors, microbiology, things like that, because more often than not, the pre-med class requirements and their major requirements overlap. It's easier to schedule your classes that way if you have that overlap.
That's good to know. That's great information. And Mary, you're also interested in you're interested in the field of psychiatry, right?
Psychiatry, and then the whole reason I chose the outset program that I did was because I wanted to really ensure that medicine was something that I wanted to do. As you said earlier, and that as I've explained, that the outset program I did, it was more explorative, and I would recommend it in cases where you want to either figure out, do I want to do medicine, or you want to figure out, am I sure about this pathway in medicine? Because I don't think it's really realized until you do extreme research into how grueling the application and how like extremely difficult the process of becoming a doctor is. It really can looking through that process can really solidify, okay, I do want to become a doctor, or maybe I should consider a different career choice. Because after going through that camp, I think it really solidified for me that yes, I do want to become a practitioner. I do want to practice. However, I know that some people from the camp, specifically people who were sophomores over there, people who applied to the camp as freshmen, things like that, they were like, maybe I should consider different career options because I'm not sure if being able to go through all those application and the way that you'd have to study for the MCAT, they weren't sure if it was something they could personally do. So I think if you're trying to explore a specific field, these programs are really great because it can kind of ensure you don't go through the process of becoming pre-med, applying for all these medical schools, and then you realize, I'm not cut out for this. This isn't personally something I can do.
So you're saying this is an important step in your decision-making process of whether you want a career in medicine?
Yeah, I don't think you necessarily have to go to a program to see that, but having one of those programs where they really talk you through the nitty gritty, where they have people who went through the process themselves to describe it. I'm going to be very honest, the people that spoke to us about the process, they were all people who were either getting their masters, there were people who were now residents, practicing physicians, things like that. They were very cut and dry with us. They didn't sugarcoat it at all that, oh, becoming a doctor isn't as bad as everybody says. In fact, they almost made it sound scarier, if that makes sense. They were very straightforward, and it kind of makes you realize, okay, if you want to go, obviously, when you're an undergrad, you don't really have to commit to being a doctor until you're in those latter years where you have to start studying for the MCAT, because if you're a pre-med with whatever major you choose, all you have to do is drop those pre-med classes and continue your major. But having that knowledge beforehand can save time, money, which are obviously infinite for most people.
Meher, did they tell you in terms of like how many classes are usually part of the pre-med? Like what are the required courses? Did they go over that?
They went over them. I think I have notes about them somewhere saved away on my iPad. I can grab them later if we'd like.
Okay.
But off the top of my head, the ones that I remember were OChem, chemistry, varying level. And by when I say chemistry and biology, I'm not just talking about you take a chem class once and that's it. You have to take varying levels from the basic chem that if you did well in your AP Chem exam, that'll cover it, to higher levels of chem classes, things like that. Anatomy, physics, and a couple other classes that I can't remember off the top of my head. But yeah, those pre-med classes are standardized and required by pretty much every med school across the country. If you choose pre-med at your college, if you have those pre-med classes factored into your college kind of like scheduling, they are going to tell you which ones are the mandated classes.
Okay, I see. Okay, got it. That makes a lot of sense. And that's kind of exciting because I think a lot of times students, yes, they want to go into the medical track, they want to become a doctor, but they might be interested in studying something very unique, like maybe psychology, right?
Exactly, yeah.
So this gives them a lot more flexibility to really explore what their interests are, maybe even combine it with what they want to do with medicine later on. So that's really interesting.
Yeah.
For example, like I studied psychology, and there's a lot of doctors or students that are wanting to study nutrition, and they want to tag that with medicine because nutrition is not becoming such a big topic. And a lot of, I think, medical schools are now starting to really enforce nutrition into their programs as well, which is kind of exciting.
Yeah, a couple med schools, I read somewhere, I think literally yesterday, that a lot of med schools are now requiring more food nutrition courses, like food nutrition course hours to be taught. I think before this could be completely off, but if I remember correctly, I think before the required amount at most med schools to be spent, like time spent studying it, would be maybe 15-20 hours. I think a lot of them are pushing it at their med school to become more like 80 to 90 hours. So that area is definitely changing. And what you said earlier about exploring it, I said for a while that I think I'm going to be a psychiatrist. I want to be a psychiatrist. I will stay in the psychiatry field, but I ended up choosing the general surgery track over at Outset because I was for a while thinking about being a trauma surgeon. And I was like, let me try exploring this a little deeper. So I think doing that really helped me because I ended up realizing, well, it would be fine if I wasn't necessarily a psychiatrist because trauma surgery, I found it really interesting. And through that, you could find out about a whole bunch of different fields. And you kind of realize what you would be okay with matching into and what you wouldn't be. And you also realize that it's okay not to make a decision right now about what exact specialty you would get to, because more often than not, when you're going through your clinical rounds and rotations in your second year-ish, third year-ish of med school, you end up changing your mind completely after being in the action of seeing that specialty at practice. So I think by doing that general surgeon track, it really helped me open my mind up to different specialities I would want to consider instead of like the one track mind I was on before where I was like, it's psychiatry or nothing.
Has that made it easier for you just to know that there is flexibility, or has that made it more like a little bit more complicated?
I think it definitely made it easier for me because there's always going to be like a bunch of different factors on what specialty you choose. For example, I always thought I would do psychiatry because I liked the hours of it and I liked the flexibility of the job itself. But then I realized I didn't really do too much research into other specialties that have that flexibility, and that I shouldn't completely cut off the ones that have the quote unquote odd hours, because the way those odd hours work isn't very cut and dry that they have 12 a.m. to 12 p.m. shifts every day. It's more like they have those once a month and then they're on somewhat regular call for the rest of it. So I think by opening up my mind to the different tracks, I think it made me realize that I don't have to be so, by realizing I didn't have to be so cut and dry, it made it easier because I realized I could still live the lifestyle I want and do the specialty that I really want to do without having to sacrifice that lifestyle balance. I think that was a big concern for me because a lot of specialties get that rep where it's like, oh, if you're an emergency surgeon, you're going to be stuck in the operating room 24/7. You're not going to have that work-life balance versus, oh, dermatology and psychiatry specialists, they usually have that work-life balance because they have those balanced hours of 9 to 5. That is completely dependent on the way you work in your field and the situation that you get yourself into, because medicine is a massive field and it can't be that cut and dry. It isn't that cut and dry, sorry, in most cases. So I think learning that definitely helped me because it stopped me from limiting myself to specialities that had that stereotypical work-life balance.
That's great insights. Aarav, I'm kind of curious to how you are, how you have decided and what things you have considered when you're making your decisions about the field.
So in terms of like what I've been considering with medicine, it's more so like I've always known that I wanted to do medicine and pursue that track because both of my parents are doctors and I've just had so much clinical experience growing up that it's kind of like that's all I've like kind of been accustomed to, and that's all I've kind of grown up to look at. So I've always had an interest in the field ever since a young age. So it's never really been a question for me about do I want to do medicine or do I want to do another field? It's more been like, what do I want to explore in terms of medicine? And that really comes down, I've always wanted to narrow it down to two certain majors or two certain like fields that I wanted to research more in depth to in medicine, one being biochemistry and one being neuroscience. So that's why like the program that I did, I got a lot more neuroscience experience and I got a lot more like understanding about the brain, and I got to explore certain components that I didn't really get to explore at a regular clinical setting. And then in terms of biochemistry, that's why I've picked certain classes that I've done in high school, such as AP Bio and AP Chemistry. And with other opportunities that I've done and other just general academics that I've pursued, that's kind of where, I had to make the decision that do I want to do biochemistry, do I want to do neuroscience? And at the end of it, I decided that if I do pursue biochemistry, it's a lot easier to minor in neuroscience and pair that as well. So even in college, if I do like end up picking biochemistry, I still have the option to kind of dwell into neuroscience and still explore that field. Whereas for most of the colleges that I'm applying to this year, they don't have the option for a biochemistry minor specifically. So that's kind of where I've made my choice. But like in terms of medicine and the health field, like it's always been that for me.
Okay, that makes sense. Well, we're actually coming really close to time. I didn't see any questions pop up. We have a lot of attendees, but I don't see any questions pop up from them. But I have a couple questions that I put down here. So my first question is for Meher. Meher, would you be interested in going into the program that Aarav went into?
I definitely think I would be. I've been looking into applying to different research programs this year. And hearing about that RICE program, I heard that they have like a gene editing specific research lab. I'm not sure how true that is. I just heard that through word of mouth. But even if not, I really like the idea of doing research. It's always something I've been interested in. It's actually one of the reasons I found psychiatry, because a lot of psychiatrists are are part of the research academic area of the medical field, because of the fact that psychiatric research is comparative to other fields on the down low. So I always found research interesting. So yeah, I definitely think I would apply to the research program that Aarav mentioned.
Okay.
I would also like to make a note to that. I feel like this is pretty important that I should mention it now. The research program that I did to RICE, they actually have switched to an online format. I was trying to find the information for it to attach. So it's now going to be purely online. So like for people who tend to like who want to sign up for this program that I'm talking about later, they've switched to a completely online format. So I
So
thought
it's not going to be like 2 weeks online and then 2 weeks in person. They've just made it online
they,
altogether.
they've switched it to a 6-week online experience. Yes.
Oh, okay. I see. How many hours of work is that per week?
So for me personally, I think I spent around 15 to 20 hours a week, but that was also in the span of 4 weeks. So I would assume that for the average researcher, if you're like taking the time and going in depth with all of your assignments and reviews, it should be around 12 to 15 hours a week.
Okay. Got it. Okay. So it's not super heavy workload.
Yes. Yeah.
What did you do on the hours that you didn't have? Was it like, were you in the classroom? Was it like classes or?
So yeah, so the hours that I'm like accounting for are pure research hours, and in the other hours I usually spent my time just going more like in depth into the certain topic I was studying just for my personal enrichment. Obviously, you know, that isn't required for the program, that they mostly give you all of the tools that you need. But like I was personally interested in it, so I kind of went more in depth into what I was learning. But other than that, it was like I spent most of my time like hanging out with everyone there, like just exploring the campus, exploring Houston. So it's not like, you know, you're just sitting down in a lab for like 12 hours a day only researching, you know. It was still like a very fun experience.
Nice. So
I'm sorry, go ahead.
I was just gonna ask, are you planning to apply at Rice? Is that on your list?
Yeah, so right now that is actually the school, my number one choice for early decision. So yeah.
Okay. So I think from what I know, from my experience and what I've heard from students, it really stands out on your resume when you have a school that you're interested in, you apply to, and you've done a program at that school before. They really look at the fact that you have been at the university, you know what the culture is like, and you like it, you know, so it makes it easier. Because a lot of times universities, when they're accepting students into the program, they also want to know that you have visited the university, you've checked out the campus, you understand the culture, because every university has a different type of culture, and you're sure that you want to come here. So it's really beneficial, and they really like to see that on the resume. So I'm wishing you all the luck, Aarav, to get into your top choice. Meher, you were saying.
Well, I was just going to add that it was a similar format at my program. It was kind of like 7 to 4-ish o'clock. We were doing, whether it was lecture, we were doing academic, you know, classes. And then we had like an hour or two of downtime where we were either just, honestly, a lot of us were taking naps in our dorms or we were hanging out with each other. And then in the evening from like 6 o'clock to 9 or 10-ish, we were doing kind of full group camp activities, because most of the day we were separated by pathway. So general surgery group was kind of always hanging together. The pediatrics group was always hanging together, things like that. So in that evening block, we were always kind of hanging out together as a massive group. So I'd say that even though we had a lot of focus on the more academic portion, our camp counselors really wanted to put stress on the fact that this was also a camp, and that in most cases summer camps had those fun kind of game-like lifestyles. And I'm still they made very clear that they wanted to have us to have relationships with all these people, and I still talk to a couple of the people, like my dorm mate and things like that, almost daily from that summer camp. So I think it definitely helps build friendships and relationships. Like I've now got friends over in Louisiana and California that we might not be up in at the same time, but we're always texting each other regardless.
Nice. Okay, it's good to know. What's one thing that you guys wish that you knew before you started applying for these programs? Is there?
If I had to think about it, I think one thing I wish I knew was kind of the depth in which you would need to answer these applications, and then also understanding kind of the difference between the 1-week programs and the more longer programs, and also making sure you understand whether or not it's residential or not. I initially wanted to apply for a longer program, something that was more than 2 to 3 weeks.
Mhm.
However, most of those programs were taking place where they would directly overlap with um I'm in marching band, so I would directly overlap with that July band camp. I just wish I did more research into camps that were throughout June, so I could still make one of those longer programs work. I didn't do as much research, I believe, as I should have. So I think I just wish I went into it a bit more well informed on the timeline aspect of it.
Mhm.
And this one is another thing. It's like kind of learning to brag about yourself, if that makes sense. In most cases, you don't want to go around saying, oh, this is what I do, this is what I've done, look at all these amazing achievements I have. But when you're applying to these programs, especially if they have an interview component, interviews are you just bragging about yourself. So I think understanding that and being comfortable with um, putting your accomplishments on show is definitely something I wish I was better at, because I struggled with that initially during the essay portion of my application, and it ended up coming to bite me a bit in the interview, where my interviewer asked me, hey, you didn't really um, expand too much on these activities you did. Could you
Mhm.
tell me more about them? So I think definitely understanding when you need to expand more about your activities, things like that, and where you need to strengthen your application.
Wow, that's really good feedback. That's good to know. So one, you need to learn how to talk about yourself. So be prepared for
Yeah.
the interview process, and also do extensive amount of research prior to applying to see if it fits with your other timeline, because there's a lot of things happening in the summer. So you got to make sure that
Exactly.
fits with your schedule as well. And this
Yeah.
and it should be a priority if this is something that you if this is the career that you want to go into. Obviously you want to build your schedule around that. So I'm guessing that you started your research in the summer to get into this program, Meher?
So here's the thing. I started the research. So I did the program this past July. I started the research to get into the program, I'd say January, February of this year ish. And I didn't really go super in depth about it, because once March started, I was more worried about prepping for exams.
Mhm.
However, I feel like I should have made it more of a priority to look into the program more and look into other programs a bit more,
Okay.
um, along with starting my search a bit earlier into the year, because had I started my search into programs at the beginning of sophomore year, or even just midway through the first semester, I probably would have been able to meet application deadlines for about 7 or 8 more programs that I was interested time being.
Mhm.
However, because I was already in that spring semester, that point, a lot of summer programs, you're either already nearing or really close to their due date within like 4 or 5 days, or they're more short-term programs that often require less planning. Then they'll have more of an extensive due date. As I said, this program was only 1 week long, which is probably why that application deadline was basically until
I
June 1st,
I
right?
see.
So they wouldn't have to do much preparation for one
Mhm.
week's worth of students. However, if it was housing students for 4 to 6 weeks, like the program I initially wanted to do, they're obviously going to want those applications in sooner and are going to ask for more extensive applications. So I think understanding the timeline of when those applications are due and doing more research ahead of time before applications are due definitely would help you get into programs that fit you better or that you aspire to be in more. The good thing is now I'm going into my first semester of junior year. I now have an opportunity to apply to all the programs that I found but missed the deadline for.
So that's your summer strategy for next year.
Yep.
Okay,
Find everything
got
now.
it. Got it. It all works out, right? So that's great.
Exactly, exactly.
Okay. Last question for you guys. What would be your top tip for someone? And I know you kind of shared it already. For someone that is a student that's in high school right now and they're thinking about going into medicine, what would you recommend?
I would personally say if you are really set on becoming a pre-med, um, grad, I would say don't stress too much about, because I had an issue with this. I don't stress too much about what exact specialty you want to go into. You're probably going to end up changing that. Make sure you cement that, yes, I do want to go into get into the process of becoming a doctor. Make sure you understand all the steps in becoming one. And like I said, start early. Giving yourself more time is always helpful, and it makes it less stressful later on in the process.
Yeah, kind of to piggyback off of that, my personal advice, if you like are dead set on becoming a pre-med student, is that you need to make, like, when you're working on stuff in high school in order to prepare yourself for your undergrad and your graduate school, it's important that you emphasize leadership and impact. So especially when you're becoming a doctor, like, you're always going to be a leader, and that's what colleges and that's what medical schools want to see out of you. So even taking the initiative to shadow a doctor, just even starting a club at your school, like a biology or chemistry club, if that doesn't exist, or even, just like helping out your teacher, saying like, oh, maybe I can help grade some papers later. Like, it can be even the smallest thing that can help you get to that tipping point for the college or for the med school that you're applying to. And also, one other thing that I would add is, like, specifically for summer programs, is be very proactive when you're applying to these programs, because I know that for a lot of programs that I wanted to apply to, I didn't really, get the opportunity to apply to them because a lot of deadlines were in December, even January, whereas I started looking at stuff in the summer. So luckily, that CSRX program that I did was had their application open in the summer for me to apply to. But I feel like if you want to maximize your opportunities, because you're not going to get into every program, to maximize your opportunity and make sure that you're in the best space, it's important to be proactive and, like, know what you want to do.
Okay, so applying,
Yeah,
start your research early. So if you're planning to do a summer program in the summer of 2026, you want to probably start your research now, have a list of programs you're going to apply to, because
definitely.
applications are already open, or at least you can do your research and be prepared. You already know that you need to have certain tests and recommendation letters, and there's an interview process, so there's enough time to prepare. So I guess starting early, because there's no guarantee you're going to get into any of them, but the more you try, you might be able to get into one of the programs, because these programs are extremely competitive. There's a lot of trying to get into them.
I would definitely say, like, the best way, in my opinion, to do it, and I might be a bit biased because this is how I'm doing it, but I essentially, for like a couple of hours, I sat down just on one day to make myself do it, and I went through all the programs either recommended to me by friends, top programs I know of in my area, just straight Googling, things like those different methods that I mentioned earlier. I made a list of programs that matched with my interests. I would say something very important is to make sure you're not just doing a program for the prestige attached to it, but because you're genuinely interested in that. And it kind of, that applies to anything you add to your resume, whether it be clubs you join or start. Unless you are actually interested or really like doing that thing, do not join a club just because, oh, well, all the other med students are doing it. You can get into, anyway, as I said, I just kind of made a huge list of programs that I'd like to apply to. And then I figured out, okay, which one of them require an SAT score, and when does the first application deadline open? Because they usually have like an application period. You must submit your deadline between November 29th and December, or you must submit your application between November 29th to December 31st or something like that. Or they have a single hard day for your application. So I kind of checked, okay, these SAT scores are needed before November starts. So I made sure to book myself an early SAT to get those scores in place for those, and to give myself time to retest if needed. So I think definitely having that list of programs you want to apply to and kind of charting out their requirements definitely can make sure that you ensure that you have everything ready come application opening. And then the only thing that we would have left is writing out those personal statements, because you don't get those prompts till those applications open.
Right. Okay. Well, that's a lot of great advice. Thank you guys for sharing those insights. I remember when I was in college and I applied for my summer program as well. I did it 1 year in advance because I was actually interested in research as well, and it was very competitive. It was very challenging. At that time, the program that I applied to was at University of North Carolina, and I picked that because honestly, sometimes you have the big Ivy League schools and the tier 1 schools, but there are also some universities that have that might not be a big name, but they'll have a program that's ranked number 1, or number, or top 5 in the country. So if you are very interested in a specific area, if you're very interested, for example, in audiology, right? UTD is one of the best programs worldwide for that. So there's also very unique programs that might be available that might not be, so when you're applying, having a diverse set of what areas you want to look at. So maybe you want to do a program at an Ivy League school, and then maybe a different program that's at a top research university in a specific area to give yourself a different experience. And also, there's nobody stopping you from doing multiple programs. So you can actually do 2 or 3 programs in the summer, as long as it can be your summer plan. You can start with the one and you can go to the next one, right?
Right, and just making sure they don't overlap, things like that.
Exactly, because they're scattered throughout. So you can always put a plan together for that. Thank you guys. We actually went over time. I didn't even realize it. The conversation was going so well, and we still have people on the call. So thank you all for listening in. And thank you for sharing all the advice and the wisdom that you guys have shared. This was really, really wonderful. And I think it's going to be very beneficial for students to just take away from this. I'm going to ask you guys to send me the link so I can, when I upload this on YouTube, it's available for the students to check out the programs that you guys basically participated in.
Yep.
All right. Thank you. Have a good day, guys.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you. Y'all have a good one.
Bye.